Welcome to the Unintelligent Movie Reviews, where we don't take ourselves too seriously, and neither should you. Hi, my name is Misunderstood.
And I'm Condrelian, and today we are covering the 1998 comedy film There's Something About Mary, which follows a shy, traumatized man who goes through incredible lengths to rekindle his chance to be with his dream girl from high school prom, Mary, against her many, many suitors.
So, is this movie still funny? That is our question of the day, which we will answer at the end. But first, I think we should talk about some of the characters.
Our cast is pretty large, but there's five, maybe six central characters. We have Mary, played by Cameron Diaz, who is our title character, the object of every man's desire in the movie. Um, then there's Ted, our kind of hapless hero, who we follow his exploits to try to get with Mary throughout the film, played by Ben Stiller. Then there's Healy, played by Matt Dillon, who is a private investigator who falls in love with Mary after being sent to investigator. Then there's Tucker, Mary's best friend and confidant, played by Lee Evans. We're actually not introduced to him until about halfway into the movie. And then there's Dom, who is played by Chris Elliott. He is Ted's best friend and kind of an emotional support character for Ted for the vast majority of the movie.
I think they did a wonderful job with the characters they picked, the outfits that they wore. Like Cameron Diaz fit that time to the T. The pants she had, the shirt she had, the bike she was riding, the way her hair looked, um, and each character, their outfits and the way they were dressed and the different locations fit the time. I thought that they looked the age that they were supposed to.
Yeah, and that opening scene, the opening scene where they're supposed to be still in high school. Apart from Ben Stiller's 10 o'clock shadow, which is pretty hard to hide when you have dark facial hair, they all looked really young. Both Mary and Ted had braces, which always helps make you look younger for some reason. It's kind of a weird thing. But one of Ted's friends that we see him in high school and he's got this big, huge head of curly hair, and then when we see him as an adult, he's a doctor and he's bald, and but he looks way younger in the opening scenes when they're in high school, just like Ted and Mary do. I think the only character that doesn't look younger in those scenes is Warren, Mary's brother. He looks
I,
exactly the same in
I
both
would
scenes.
agree. I would agree. He does look a little bit older, but he played the character wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, good
you
job to Earl
know,
Brown.
each scene was amazing. I mean, because in the first scene when they meet it, like you said, outside of school, and then when he goes to pick her up for the date for the prom, the house, and when the father answers the door, gives him a hard time, like a dad would do.
Busted Shots is great, but the fact that he's played by Keith David makes it so much better. Uh,
Exactly.
he's got
You,
great delivery,
yep.
and it would be
And
super intimidating to an 18-year-old.
it would. And then her coming down the stairs in her prom dress, and it looked just like the dresses that they wore back then. I mean, it's to the T, the hairstyle, the dresses.
Mm.
Um, it's just they did a great job. I mean, if you think about it, they didn't have to use a lot of scenes in this movie, but they did a great job. They really did. They
Yeah,
did.
but throughout the rest of the movie, they're when they're mostly in Miami, it kind of looks like they filmed in Miami, like on site. Sure, they probably built a set for Mary's big, giant condo, but for the most part, it kind of felt like they were actually in Miami. Uh, in every scene they were in. Well, when they're in Florida, anyways. I don't know anything about Rhode Island, but I've at least been to Miami.
Well, what do you think about the music?
Well, at the moment, the only thing that comes to mind is the two guys that play a guitar and a drum that sit in the tree and transition us from, well, they do the opening credits, and it's they kind of sound like a coffee shop duo, I guess you could call them. And the opening credits are sung by these characters that are they in the movie? Are they not in the movie? That question, like because they people just kind of ignore their presence throughout the entire film until the very end when something happens to one of them. You know,
Well, they
but
pop
otherwise,
they pop in and out of scenes playing their
mm,
music, and
yeah,
it's hilarious because they don't sing that great, and I don't
mm,
think they're really even playing their instruments. But
I don't know.
it's kind of interesting. It's similar to it reminds me of the movie with Adam Sandler. It reminds me of the movie with that where singers in the background, they don't really belong there.
Mm.
So that was really interesting.
It's right after that we begin Ted's journey into all these horrible things that happen to him. And the first thing that happens to him is he's in a misunderstood circumstance and zips his junk up. Um, and then we proceed to go through the Ben Stiller take it to the next level, where like all these people come in and like talking about how did he get his beans over his Frank and yeah, and when you see it,
It's hilarious. Well, that's hilarious, but it's hard. But for men, I bet it's hard to watch. I couldn't imagine.
yeah, just yeah, like I said, Keith David and his comedic timing. Oh, you know, uh, he's great. But anyways, that trauma sends him to the hospital where he spends a couple of weeks, and we open up on our next scene, with him dealing with his trauma with his counselor and talking about Mary. 13 years later, 12 years later, it says.
Correct. Correct. He's sitting there talking and he's spilling his heart out while the therapist is not even behind him. He actually sneaks in the room eating food, and then says, "Oh, time's up." So, but it is showing that he's still thinking about Mary. He can't get her out of his mind because they never went on the date because of the incident. They had to take him to the hospital, and it was this whole to do, and it was funny, and sad at the same time. And so Mary never got to the prom, and he never had the date with Mary. And so, yeah, that keeps going. It keeps going, showing how he cannot stop thinking about Mary.
Yeah, right, exactly. Um, and then after his therapy session, his friend Dom, convinces him that he should hire a private investigator to see if he can track down Mary. And he knows one. His name's Healy. He works at his office, and we're introduced to Healy. He's scummy. The questions he asks, in advance, the fact that he's got naked women on his walls, his pants are unzipped and open, like
He was
he
sketchy, definitely
yeah,
sketchy.
definitely sketchy. Sketchy's probably I think scummy and sketchy. But he goes down to Miami and finds Mary, and turns out Mary's a smoke show, and he's watching her go through her routine, and as she's going through her routine, you can see that he's becoming infatuated with her. And, but he returns to Rhode Island and tells a highly fabricated tale to Ted that she's obese and paraplegic and has a bunch of children and on the welfare and all the things and he Ted kind of goes home kind of disappointed. And then the next morning he's like, no, I'm gonna go do it. I want to go anyway, so maybe I can help her. Healy's leaving. He's like, you missed your shot. And he goes to Miami to go try and be with Mary.
Right, right. He makes all the stories up because he doesn't want Ted to actually go to go where Mary was because Mary was absolutely beautiful, like she was when she was younger. So he packs all of his stuff in his office, this detective, so-called detective, and he leaves to go be where Mary is to see if he could like, woo her. And Ted, it's like, not understanding why is this guy leaving? He wasn't getting the whole picture. He wasn't getting the whole picture.
And then Ted kind of almost drops out of the movie for about 20 minutes or so while we see Healy and his attempts to woo Mary. Now Healy did lots and lots of homework in advance, So he knew what, like, he kind of he bugged Mary's condo, so he knew he could listen to her conversations with her friends, with her neighbor Magda. He could knew exactly what she wanted in a man, what she wanted in life in general, not just with a man, but life in
Mhm.
general. And so, like, he tailors himself to be her perfect man, even
Correct.
though he has nothing in common with this perfect man. Like, her perfect man's somebody who can be free to travel the world when they want to, just, like, self-employed, like an architect. So he decides that he's going to be an architect. He doesn't know the first thing about architecture. Um,
Right. Right. So
he
he
Go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, so he pretty much, he follows her when she's practicing golfing and he pretends like he's trying to learn and things like that. And he starts saying all these different things that he heard her say to catch her eye because he's this odd looking guy, dressing funky and kind of, nothing really to look at. They made him look that way, obviously, because, Matt Dillon's very good looking in real life, but they made him look that way. And so it worked. And so then he kind of switched it around a little bit and he took off and started walking towards the car like he wasn't interested in her, but she was interested in him because of all the little things he was throwing at her, you know.
Mhm.
And so then she started coming almost like coming on to him. And, oh, so what'd you say your name was? And then starting a conversation. Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yes, but during his attempts to woo her, I don't know if it was just subconscious or maybe it was the fact that she's always relied on Tucker. She takes him to meet Tucker at a architecture gallery, excuse me. And Tucker's her best friend and confidant, as I mentioned. And he asks him a lot of pointed questions, like, oh, what school did you go to? Oh, you must have studied under this person, like, do I know any buildings you might have designed? And,
Right. Which is
you know,
funny because at the end of the movie, you'll realize what's going on here, and it's really funny that he's asking all these questions to get him in trouble, pretty much. But it was interesting. You don't know what's going on at first because you're just going along with the ride, pretty much. But once the end of the movie comes, you're gonna go, oh, okay, now I get it. Yep.
Healy makes a phone call to Sully, his cop friend, and the reason he did this, he does it right in front of Mary's house, and the reason he does this is because Magda, her next door neighbor, has a receiver that picks up cell phone transmissions because it's the 90s and cell phone transmissions were not very well encoded. And so he knows that they're going to hear this conversation. And so he has a planned script that he and Sully are reading out, like how, like, oh, I'm so sad I lied to this girl, but it's because I don't want to talk about, like the orphans I was deworming in Somalia, and like those, just an example, like, but he goes through all these things, and Mary takes him back anyways, accepts the fact that he's not an architect, you know, and so Tucker has to try harder and says that he's got a police report with, like, his murder records. um, and then at that point when Healy follows Tucker, that we find out that Tucker is not Tucker. He's actually Norm, a pizza delivery boy
And he's
who's
not and he's not handicapped at
he's
all.
not handicapped. He's not an architect. He's not even British.
Correct, correct. So through this movie, things like this happens. Different things happen, but people aren't who they portray themselves to be because, and you don't know it at the time. When you find out, you're just shocked. And Ted gets with his buddy and his buddy Dom, hanging out with him at his house with his wife and stuff, and they get talking. Anyways, long story short, he convinces him to go and find Mary because someone had mentioned that she's hot, she's good looking. There was a guy that was a friend of his that had the big hair that David mentioned, and he ran into him. I think he was a doctor or something, and he was saying, "Oh, no, I seen her. She works. She's a doctor and she's hot." Blah blah blah. So he proceeds to go and find Mary, and Dom goes with him, At this point, that's when he first starts growing, getting all the rash on his face. He didn't have it before. He starts getting a rash on his face and stuff, and he says it's from nervousness, nerves and things. So they go and they arrive and they see Mary, talking with the detective guy, the Pat Healy. And at this point, you can see that it's kind of not working so well. She had different odd look on her face, like she's kind of getting irritated with him, and he wasn't really interacting well with her brother, and that was a huge thing for Mary because her brother comes first in her life. And in the movie, they showed how she helped people and she worked with kids and that were needed help and things like that. So we're showing what type of person she was through the movie. So then finally Ted was too chicken to say anything, so Dom yells her name and ducks. So then he has to get up and kind of like Mary, and he acts like, oh my gosh, how you been? Like he didn't know she was there. But yeah, so that's kind of how they see each other after all those years.
And Ted convinces her to blow off her date with Healy.
Hmm.
And this is the time, and this is the same night that Tucker shows up and says, tells her that, that Healy's actually a murderer. So she cuts all ties with Healy at this point. But in so they go on their date, and there's some good comedy on the date. And when she invites him up for whatever people do while they're on dates, and they go to people's, upstairs for refreshments. When she invites him up, the Healy and Norm start throwing speed into the apartment, and the dog eats speed. Now, Magda's dog has been told throughout the movie to have been a good judge of character for men. Like the dog hates men. The only reason Healy was already aware, so he drugged the dog in advance, gave it sedatives. This time he's giving a stimulant. So the dog attacks Ted when Ted lets the dog out of the bathroom, and they get into a over the top combat scene. And at the end of the combat scene, the dog jumps at Ted, and Ted ducks, and the dog flies out the window. The only reason I'm really bringing that up is I remember seeing that for the trailers back in the 90s. I had no idea what this movie was about, but I remember seeing that trailer when I in the 90s, and it was hilarious. Like why is this dog acting like this? I didn't see this movie until I was an adult. So, uh, but
There was
I
there are definitely a lot of funny scenes in this movie. When Cameron Diaz asked him when they first met again, and she decided to go out with him. She asked him where he was staying at what hotel. So she actually went to his hotel, and when she goes to pick him up, he had some stuff stuck on his ear, and she thought it was moose. And so it's just funny stuff that happens, and you gotta have to watch the movie to see it. But it's really funny. All these odd funny things happen, and you're laughing a lot. Some of it's just like, oh yeah, yeah, some of it's kind of gross, but
pretty much any scene with Magda is gross.
yeah. And so that was really an odd, interesting part of the movie.
We're kind of at the end at this point, which kind of draws us to my favorite scene. I actually have two favorite scenes. They're connected, so um, the two scenes are the final reveals. Um, the first final reveal is the fact that Dom is Woogie. And at this point, when Dom shows up in Mary's condo, he's covered in those little pustules. And he's spazzing and maniacal and absolutely crazy. Clearly creepy stalker guy. And now it explains why Mary had to change her name, why she was so difficult to find, why she had issues trusting men, other than Tucker. I don't know why she trusted Tucker. I don't know how Tucker got himself into that part of like her life, but whatever. Um, and like Woogie's crazy, and Healy and Tucker are downstairs, and they're hearing like her struggle with Woogie in her condo, and they come running upstairs, ready to rescue Mary, and he's just trying to steal her shoes because he's a psychopath, and they haul Woogie off of her, and then it reveals the fact to Mary that not only we have the reveal of Woogie, but she gets revealed that Tucker is not handicapped. That his name isn't Tucker. He's the pizza delivery boy Norm, and he's been lying to her this whole time about almost everything he's ever said to her has been a lie. Um, and then the second reveal is immediately right afterwards because Ted shows up, and Ted asks why Dom is there, and she refers to him as Woogie, and he goes, "You're Woogie?" And he's like, "Dom Woganowski," with his dumbfounded expression on his face. But Ted came back specifically after he'd gotten kicked out by Mary because of, we explaining that Ted, giving her a letter that said that, that Ted had hired Healy in the first place. But Ted brought Brett to Mary. And Brett had been, another character we just had been referred to throughout the movie. That he had been such a great guy, and the only thing that prevented him from, Mary had gotten with him was the fact that he had said he didn't want Warren as well. And Ted found out that wasn't true at all on his own. Norm also says that it wasn't true at all. But Ted found that out, and so he brings Brett. Well, Brett is actually Brett Favre. And all the guys are like, "Oh, this isn't fair. We can't compete with Brett Favre." And just it's true. Brett Favre is Brett Favre. What's your favorite scene?
I don't know if I really have a favorite scene. Um, I just like the way how they have all these interesting, funny things that happen, and it's just one thing after another, which is a typical um Ben Stiller movie. Um, that I like that, and I guess maybe wouldn't say it was my favorite part, but it was I found kind of funny was at Ben leaves the house and is leaving the house and he's bawling like a baby, and of course those guys are singing with their music in the background again, and she comes running out and she's like, Ted, Ted. And he's like, oh, Mary. And goes, with a face, look on his face like, oh my gosh, she's coming to get me. And she runs up to him and then she says, forgot your keys. I just found that hilarious because it's like you're expecting it once again to be different. So that's how this movie kind of was the whole time. You never knew what was going to happen. It was funny, hilarious. It was, all this different, you get all these odd different feelings. Some of them are like, whoa, can't believe that happened. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think I had a favorite scene, but that one was pretty funny to me.
I guess we've actually answered our question of the day without having to repeat it at all. Is the movie still funny? And yeah, it is.
I believe the movie is funny. So the question of the day is the movie still funny? I agree it is. But I actually do have a secret question that I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
My question is, who in the movie, Sully's in the movie, the character Sully in the movie, what other movie is he in?
Ooh. I mean, I'm sure
This
he's
is
in other things.
this is an easy question.
I don't know. Right now, I can't think of anything. I'm on. There's something about Mary right now. Can you give me a hint?
It's in Vegas.
Oh no way! That's him way older.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in the
He's in The
Hangover.
Hangover. Yep. Yep. He's the father in Hangover. That's drive the
Alan
car.
Dad. I didn't even think of that. Uh,
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and rate the movie, give it a rating, and we're gonna start with you.
Start with me.
Can start with you.
So I'm not big on comedies. I find a lot of scenes in comedies kind of make me cringe. I don't want to like watching Ted get watching Ted get abused by the cops was hilarious, but the a lot of other scenes, like where people just kind of dump on him. I'm like, I can't stand this. Like, this isn't funny to me. So, I'm gonna when I say that I'm gonna give this movie an A, that means a lot because I don't like comedies. Just an A
Wow,
though.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I do like comedies because there's not, I don't know, there's not very many, in my opinion, good comedies. I don't like every movie Ben Stiller's in, so
Mm-hmm.
I do find this one funny. Um, I do like a lot of the actors that are in this one. There's a lot of different actors, so I like that. I think I'm actually gonna have to give it a B. I don't
B
find it
grade.
funny at the top, and there's things in there that just like I kind of cringe at, but overall, it's a funny movie. You can watch it more than once. Is it a movie to watch it with kids?
No.
Probably not. Um, so I would give it a B. I give it a solid B. Well, that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys for joining us and reviewing this movie. If you have any movies you'd like us to review, please put in the comments. If you have any comments, please put something in there. Let us know what you're thinking. Questions, not nasty remarks, but questions or critiques or anything like that. And we hope that you will come back and watch us some more with our next review. So, once again, thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye.